Alright, so hello everyone, I'm Ryan. So I wasn't actually planning on uploading this to YouTube. This is actually an assignment that I had to do for one of my classes in college. So, yeah, that's kind of why it's a little bit weird. But then at the same time, as I watched through it, I was like, oh, this actually kind of does remind me of like how I do YouTube videos normally. So I was like, why not just like bring it on over to the channel? So, yeah, that's exactly what this is. So, hope y'all enjoy, I suppose. Yeah, that's about it. Alright, so hello everyone, I'm Ryan. Well, today I'm going to be breaking down a fastball pitch. Now keep in mind this is my version of a fastball pitch, so of course any other pitcher will probably have a different way of going about doing a fastball. Today I'm going to be showing you my version. So, there are 7 steps to pitching a fastball. Now, before we actually get to those 7 steps, there is some pre-pitching prep that we need to do. It is very, very important to properly stretch and warm up your entire body beforehand so that you don't injure yourself, and as well as you get the most out of your body when you start pitching. Really good areas to focus or like exercise to do, of course, is jumping jacks. Great way to warm up the entire body. Or of course you can do more specific exercises for your shoulders, or like stretches for your shoulders and arms so that they are properly nice, loose, and limber. Now, it's also very important to completely relax yourself, to not be tense, as being tense can, one, lead to injuries, and secondly, of course, it can mean that you won't have as much control over the ball, which is very, very important as a pitcher. And of course, the last thing you can do is just throw some like freehand pitches, which is just like throwing, balls without really any pitching form, just throwing them directly at the net or at like a wall so that you can get your arm more accustomed to the weight of the ball and like throwing a ball. Right, so step number 1 is foot positioning and grip. By placing your feet parallel to each other, you start the first step, and this basically helps create like a good starting point and a good way for like pitchers to get into that pitching mindset to reset. And of course, having them parallel basically means you'll be as steady as possible when you're doing the entire pitching cycle. Now, it's also important to select your grip. Today I'm going to be showing the two-seam fastball. The two-seam fastball essentially is a lot like a straight fastball. However, when it gets to the base plate, it breaks ever so slightly in a random direction. Now, in baseball, breaking basically means that when the ball gets to the base plate, it will slightly like change direction, like left or right, just ever so slightly. Now, the next step is, well, this is something that I've not seen that many pitchers do, but I personally like doing, which is creating like an offset. And the thing is, this is basically meant in order to build momentum for the next step. And also it's a really good way to kind of get yourself into like, or reset your rhythm as a pitcher. And this is what that should look like. Setting just my, the kind of like wind up foot back whenever I'm starting my pitching cycle. Now this leads into the next step, which is to initiate the wind-up, but for the lower half, or just below the torso. So as you can see, raising your leg up and trying to keep it as close to 90 degrees as possible. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, and you don't need to hold it for that long, since when you're actually pitching, it'll probably just be only for like a second or half a second. As you can see, this kind of leads from the previous step to the other, like by basically using that momentum you build up from keeping it there and raising it up. And holding it as steady as you can, and of course making sure that your supporting leg is as straight as it can be. Making sure that these are all very, very important steps to practice and get through in order to get the initial wind-up correct. Now, next is for the upper half. This is for the upper half of the torso, and basically the main idea here is to lock in your arms, and by placing them parallel, you're basically like locking in. And what's happening here is it's almost like you're creating a spring for this entire like motion. You're basically making your body into a spring that is supposed to like help propel the ball, and you're not really using your arms like actual like force or weight. You're using your entire body's like motion and momentum in order to build up and like affect the speed of the ball. Now, this is where we come to the actual release of this wind-up mechanism. So here, within, for the next step, you'll see that basically what's happening is we're moving both the arms apart and as well as the sliding foot forward. This is in order to create as much momentum, but the sliding arms apart basically helps like to start the spring motion, like to basically release it. And of course, again, moving the sliding foot forward helps drive that like to drive that forward, to drive that into a forward direction, again building more speed and momentum. Now, along with this, as you will notice here, I'm twisting my hips forward. This is very important, as again, this builds even more like, energy and force. And like, it also takes a lot of pressure off like the actual arm itself. And again, like there's pretty much like when you're throwing, you won't really feel all that much weight here. All your energy and power is coming from you just turning just ever so slightly like that. And of course, like placing your foot, like the wind up foot, just like in a sideways, more or less sideways kind of way, so that you have support. So when you finish the entire mechanism, or like you finish the entire like pitching cycle, you actually have a place to like properly sit, like set your foot on, and like you don't trip and fall over. Next is throwing down your arm, and basically what your arm is supposed to be doing. So as you can see over here, is the next step is, as all that's happening, I'm rotating my arm. The reason for this and why you should rotate your arm is basically this helps, like as the entire motion happens, automatically your arm will start to like fall down. You don't need to put any pressure into it. As the entire cycle goes through, your arm will automatically just kind of fall down without even you needing to do anything. And that's what's so brilliant about the entire like pitching mechanism. And yeah, finally is the follow-up or the follow-through. What happens once you throw the ball, you will still have a lot of energy still left in your body, and you need to find a way to disperse that. And that's exactly what's happening here, is we're dispersing that through this leg. By lifting it like that, it basically helps disperse that and like buffer the energy out. And so that basically means there won't be any aftershocks on the rest of your body. And one last thing to, of course, remember is to keep as straight of a posture as possible, because if you throw down too far and you're not like having a straight posture, you can very, very easily trip. And now finally, just to show how it all works in motion, here is what it would look like more or less in regular speed. And there we go. That is how we do a fastball pitch. Here's another angle of what that looks like. Again, they're not like exactly perfect. It has been a while since I've like properly pitched, but still, I think this is a pretty solid way to learn how to, well, do a fastball. Now, I'm just going to show you what it looks like in slow motion. So you'll basically see all, like, the entire mechanism kind of, like, slowly, like, come together and then slowly, like, unwind. And you can see all the little, like, moving bits and pieces that happen here. But yeah, this fastball, of course, I guess I don't really know how particularly fast it is, but it does seem to be pretty effective. And of course, silly face included. Yeah, there we go. There is the full cycle, followed through and all that. And yeah, that is how we do a two-seam fastball. But that brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you for, well, sitting through and listening to me explain how to pitch a fastball. I hope you enjoyed.